যদি সবাই ফিরে যায়, ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা সবাই ফিরে যায়, যদি গহন পথে যাওয়ার কালে কেউ ফিরে না যায়, তবে পথের কাটা তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে, তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে, যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে। যদি আলো না ধরে, ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা আলো না ধরে, যদি ঝড় বাদলে আধার রাতে দুয়ার দেয় ঘরে, তবে বজ্রানলে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে, আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে, যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে। একলা চলো, একলা চলো, একলা চলো, একলা চলো রে।
Hi guys, thank you for joining the live stream. Today we have someone called what Tripathi? Shit, I forgot your name. Apratim Tripathi. Yes,
Apratim.
Who incidentally was recommended by this viewer of ours just a few days back. Then I googled him, found out his handle. Then I found out his appearances on different podcasts. And today I realized after inviting him that we had actually spoken and kind of debated heatedly about Ambedkar 3 years back. And also I realized that we'll get to that debate a little as well. That was fun, and we ended on really amicable terms. We did not burn bridges. And then
my God, I don't even remember the debate, so you're bringing me.
So you were a business analyst by profession?
Yes, I am.
You still are?
Not really. I just left a job. I left my job a few months back, and I got a fellowship for writing my book.
Nice.
So right now I'm a research fellow. Yeah.
Nice. Where on in Mr. Sampat's organization?
No, in PPGF. It's called Public Policy Governance Foundation. Yeah.
Wow, nice. So what will you research there? Your upcoming book on Savarkar is for that institution only?
Yeah, that's right. So actually, the idea of my book was out there on Twitter. I was actually working on it. So some people liked my work and they said that you can have a fellowship if you want. So that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what I found most fascinating about your podcast appearances, I mainly went through your appearance on the Indian Edibles or Indian Indic Edict podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't have too many views, but it's such a fascinating podcast that everyone must watch. The host, I didn't know about this channel as well. The host was very, very well read. He was very well prepared. He was asking beautiful questions. And from your answers, I was fascinated to find out that you absolutely have a research social scientist bent of mind. And even though you don't come from this world, have you had any training in liberal arts?
No, not really. No. So I'm an autodidact, you can say. I read a lot of works, but it's like it's not complete. With when you don't have training, you can't really claim that you are one. So
right, yeah, in a way. But it definitely shows. And since my circle has always been full of academics only, all my friends are in JU Pressy, all of them are in liberal arts. And today in the right wing, we have many non-liberal arts backgrounds people doing all their work in liberal arts or in the genre of social science and stuff. And some of them are really able and some of them aren't, and it shows in their research and it shows in their way of talking. At least it's visible to me. So I was very fascinated to learn how diverse your knowledge base is, how honest you are, how non-ideological, how non-hellbent you are on things. You are okay with irony, you are okay with plurality of views even. So in that context, first let's get to what we debated on Ambedkar. Okay, so back then was the phase when I am one of those people who has just found out that Ambedkar said those things about Muslims and about the Muslim threat and stuff. So I was very, very
Yeah, that's
excited,
right.
and I had no clue about what else Ambedkar wrote on India, Hinduism, etc. I just knew he was some sort of caste activist, and he said these things on the Islamist question. So I called him he should be one of the top foremost Hindutwa icons as well. And you rejected that heavily, and we debated that. So what do you think now? Has your views changed at all?
So primarily, see, now it's more of a question of what I believe in, and it's less of the historian bent of mine. So it's
Yeah.
kind of getting, now I have to inspect, because see, uh, for me, if you have to call somebody a Hindutva icon, then they
Hmm.
should at least qualify as proud inheritors of the Hindu civilization.
Right. Right. Right.
And that's where I feel Ambedkar is a bit problematic. He has some social ideas, and
Hmm.
they have been debated and will be debated in the academic circles. But to me, to call somebody a Hindutva icon, I guess there has to be some sort of inclination from their end as well, to
Hmm.
from a
Right.
personality's end as well, to
Right.
subscribe to that worldview. So I think it kind of fails there. You can kind of incorporate him, that I understand with, but then there will be some sorts of clashes, because then people will pick out some quotes which are controversial, and those don't really align with the you know uh, this monochromatic idea of the Hindu civilization, of the strand that starts from Manu, Rama, and to Krishna, and to then to Chanakya, Shivaji, and then to
Yeah.
Savarkar, Aurobindo. So
Hmm.
it kind of is problematic there. But yeah, you can say that uh, Ambedkar is an original thinker in that regard. That he
Hmm.
brought those European ideals of social justice in the Indian sphere to
Hmm.
debate them. But then I'll also contend that Ambedkar is a product of his times.
Hmm.
So if you
Exactly.
know that Maharashtra has a tradition of these English educated elite that
Hmm.
were far more prominent than we read about them in our history books currently. So one of
Hmm.
them was M.G. Ranade.
Hmm.
So he was also a social reformer. So was
Right.
Bhandarkar, and so
Right.
was Gopal Ganesh Agarkar. And
Okay.
some of these people predate even Phule, for that matter. And
Exactly.
most notably, these are Brahmins.
Hmm. Yes.
So so it kind of is fascinating that the discussion that you see in popular discourse makes it seem like the Brahmins did not have any intent to
Yes.
explore
Hmm.
multiple views. It's not
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
But then, of course, their views were calibrated. Their views had a
Yeah.
sense of freshness in them. And then, of course, there were some flaws, because fresh ideas have some flaws generally,
Right.
and they are debated
Right.
and refined. So
Yeah.
I guess Ambedkar took from that tradition. He appreciates Ranade a lot for his
Hmm.
ideas. But then
Hmm.
Ambedkar, there's a problem with Ambedkar. He wants to be seen as a face who has brought original ideas, and that's where it kind of gets problematic to me, because people are already working in that regard. And
Right.
Savarkar, anyways, has his views, that uh, were even present in his childhood, because he read Agarkar vociferously. So
Right.
I would like to that Ambedkar is just one of those people, not the only one.
Right. Now, have you read Dr. Janki Bakle's biography of Savarkar?
Yeah, just the revolutionary and political parts. I have not gone
Okay.
through the her conception of how she understands Hindutva, or how she
Okay.
understands the literary Savarkar. Yeah.
Okay. She has an interesting criticism here on of Savarkar that yes, he was a very staunch anti-caste activist. She points out that he was getting FIRs in his name from Orthodox Hindus only, Hindu Brahmins. He was getting driven out of. He was getting chased out of places. But even then, his anti-caste movement should not be really. There's nothing to appreciate it that much, because after all, he was a Brahmin himself. He had all the Brahmin privilege, and he had been doing all this with one sinister motivation, which was to counter Muslims. So, and he did not really call for the dismantling of the Brahminical system. He just said the discrimination should end. So there's not much to appreciate Savarkar here.
See, for this we have to also locate uh, one's childhood, like you have to locate Savarkar's childhood in this debate, like how he viewed things when he was a child. So he's known for dining with people who are not
Yeah.
from the privileged caste, so to say, if
Right.
you want to use that term. But
Right.
so it's not like his views are new. He
Hmm.
has borrowed it from the tradition of the reformist thinkers of Maharashtra.
Yes.
So you cannot really say that. See, for someone like Gopal Ganesh Agarkar, he was also a political figure as well as a social commentator. But
Hmm.
he also kind of mobilized this sense of Indian politics with the reformist idea. So I think
Hmm.
Savarkar is new in the fact that he kind of sees it as some sort of a civilizational continuity.
Hmm.
He he says that this has kind of come through a sense of deliberation among say a lot of thinkers, and he has kind of borrowed it.
Hmm.
He wants to move forward with certain ideas. He does not want to become a relic of the past. He wants to be relevant. He wants to be seen as someone who can bring the Hindus forward in some way. Like his ideas are still relevant. Like he has died in 1966, but we are still debating him, and I think his ideas will be as relevant in 2047.
Hmm. On the relevance question, I have to ask: is he really relevant? I have to ask you with a certain context. Few days back, I had a very heated debate on WhatsApp with a allegedly a liberal friend of mine, but whose policy positions are identical to all communists of the country, and he doesn't like communists. He calls himself a Renaissance era guy. I mean, I identifies with the ideas of the European Renaissance. So I wanted to provoke him, and so just to poke him, I said that Savarkar is the real father of the country, and he got very pissed off. And I always knew knew him as someone who hated Gandhi, and he goes on a rant about how Gandhi was insanely awesome and Savarkar is probably the worst human being to have been born on earth. So I countered him on all the facts and stuff. After listening to your podcast with Indie Kiddick, I realized he was getting all that from Arun Shori's book. So, and I did not know what are the contents of the book. So now I find that Arun Shori has actually managed to rile up a new group of people. So there is Savarkar relevant anymore? Because is he really even the father of the country? Because the way our country works, the way our state machinery functions, the way our state is, the goals of the state, do you find any of Savarkarism in there? It's all Gandhiism, right? So in that sense, Savarkar is not really the father of the country, right?
I wouldn't kind of agree to that, because see, on the relevance part, we can say that
Hmm.
Shori wrote the book because he saw the ascendance of Savarkar.
Hmm.
If he had not been relevant, Shori would not have been compelled to write a book on it.
Hmm.
So, and then Savarkar, the literature on Savarkar has been far more frequent in the past few years than,
Hmm.
say in 1970s, 80s, 90s, something.
Yeah.
So I think Savarkar has been brought up now because suddenly his ideas, uh, people realize that they have some sense of truth to them. Like he was warning about Pakistan, partition happened, and
Yeah.
then he was kind of questioning the place of caste in politics, and he wanted a sense of Hindu unity in that regard. He wanted nationhood as the first, principle of identity, not
Yeah.
caste.
Yeah.
So
And that is the only
uh,
thing that can function in a nation state situation. Nothing else can work.
absolutely. So even I believe that caste should be kept away from politics. And
Hmm.
Savarkar was prescient in that regard. And
Hmm.
nobody else could have fructified it better or performed it as an experiment on a national scale than a politician. And we have to be
Yeah.
glad that Savarkar was a political actor as well. He was not just a social commentator.
Yes.
Unlike, say, Ambedkar, who never really had the chance to, uh, get some sort of a political mobilization of all Hindus in that regard to bring them to a consensus.
Yeah.
He had his own, say, an organization, an interest group that he wanted to mingle with. He did not
Hmm.
want to have a larger debate on that. And I think Savarkar is pretty successful in that regard because he wants all Hindus to come to a consensus about this.
Yeah.
He does not want it to be limited to the dictats of the Brahmins or the lack of consent of the lower caste, so to say. I have a problem with that term, but if you see that Savarkar also believed in this sort of a horizontal society which has civilizational as its, a performative imperative, and nationhood as a goal, a righteous goal.
Do you consider Savarkar a Hindu?
That will be a very complicated question. He's a cultural Hindu, definitely. His inspiration comes from a lot of Hindu thinkers or Hindu Renaissance men, so to say, the Yug Purushas, the epochal figures. And then he also derived a few ideas from the Europeans. So he also has this Eurocentric view of race and all that is also there. But then, of course, the majority of his inspiration comes from the Hindu icons. And I think even he would contend, if we ask him, that is the Hindu idea enough for our ascendance, he would kind of agree to that, because he draws from all sorts of figures like Rama, Krishna, Chanakya, even Shankaracharya for that spiritual egalitarianism. And he kind of envisions this as some sort of social reality. And then he's deeply inspired by Shivaji. I think Shivaji has been a source of inspiration in his actions as well, not just in terms of his writings. And then now you see there's an interesting connection between Savarkar and Aurobindo. They both kind of posit themselves as Hindu civilizational nationalists.
Right.
And they were contemporaries, and they both came with same conclusions on nationhood, on the sense of what is now called as Shatru Bodh, understanding your ideological enemies. So they have a deep sense of understanding that who can fit in the mold and who cannot.
Yeah, and both of them were one of the first ones who realized the threat of the Khilafat movement.
Absolutely. In fact, there were many more, but Savarkar and Aurobindo become relevant because they have this sense of idea of how the Hindu society should look like and how it should function. So they could actually bring it to some sort of some sort of relevance in practicality, because Aurobindo was more of a spiritual functionary and Savarkar was on the political end. So both of them could have done their part in that regard.
Yeah. But in 1909, what Sri Aurobindo said was kind of akin to what K.K. Menon said in that viral scene in that movie Shaurya, that इनका हिसाब चुकाते चुकाते हम खाक हो जाएंगे. Sri Aurobindo said that मतलब इनके साथ कोऑपरेट करते करते हम खुद के मंदिर में घुसना भी बंद कर देंगे. ये क्या कर रहे हो, ये सब बंद करो. So
although
go on.
Aurobindo was pretty egalitarian, so to say, before he kind of went to Pondicherry and then the Khilafat movement happened. So he has kind of contrasting ideals before that. And even Savarkar, for that matter, they both had their kind of political transition during the Khilafat movement. Savarkar had his own motivations. He had his own views. So he was kind of giving the nation a sense of a carrot that at least give Muslims a chance to perform in the political sphere unitedly with the Hindus. And that was his ideas in 1906 in London. And now, when the Khilafat movement happened, he kind of understood that the carrot is not working. Now we have to bring the stick. So,
Dr. Janki Bakle also kind of concludes that Savarkar lost all his patience during the Khilafat movement. That's when he completely lost his shit. He got very pissed off. And do you think? Go on.
So I believe that Savarkar and Aurobindo are not the only ones, though. There are a lot others like Ambedkar, Rabindranath Tagore, for that matter, also lost his cool after that. He made all sorts
Jinnah
of
even,
notable. I would say Jinnah's is more to do with his political marginalization in the Congress than the Khilafat. Although he did not agree with the Khilafat movement for that matter. He was kind of a Tilakite before that, if that fascinates you.
Did you like the Savarkar movie? How accurate do you think it is?
I think there's more to be desired, but I think in 3 hours he could not have done better. It's a great, exemplary display of nuance in acting, and he kind of understands how uh, Savarkar would have spoken, how his tenacity would have been as a fiery orator, and how
Exactly.
he would have been uh, affected by the tortures in the cellular jail. I think he has kind of encapsulated that very well. So the
Exactly.
deterioration of the teeth is also,
Right.
if you
Right.
notice,
Yes.
yeah. And then,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, there are certain deviations, like when he says that the partition of Bengal happened due to Curzon Wiley. That's wrong. It was due to Lord Curzon. Those were different people. And then he has shown a scene of flogging. I don't remember Savarkar as being flogged, but he said that uh, after he was released from the Andamans, he said that if we were to return to Andamans again, we would have to face the ordeal of caning and everything. So I
Hmm.
don't know if he kind of attributes it as some sort of a punishment meted to himself, or is it
Right.
in general? Because Ulaskar Dutt was, tortured
Yes.
like anyone who never was in
Yes.
Andamans.
Yes. Was he? I heard in some from some sources that not sources really, random people discussing stuff they have allegedly read somewhere that he was sodomized in the Andaman prison.
I don't buy that. I don't think so.
Hmm. I see. I because I
Where
don't
are you
know
getting these from? I don't know, man.
because
I
these
would
this
go
stuff is
to.
common these days in prisons everywhere in the world. But were they even common back then?
I have not read it. See, I won't claim to be the all-knower of history. I have,
Hmm.
kind of fixated my research scope to Savarkar and all those related to him. So I have not
Hmm.
come across anything like that till now.
Hmm.
But of course, it could be a reality. And if I find something, I'll definitely post on Twitter for that
What
matter.
was the
Yeah.
extent of his tortures?
See, to me, the most excruciating of all tortures is this solitary confinement.
Hmm.
It has this sense of making people insane.
Hmm.
In that, Savarkar was put into some sort of a dark cave or something, which had a tiny
Yeah.
hole to, bring all kind
Hmm.
of food materials to him, and
Hmm.
he had to uh, kind of drop his excreta in that cave, sort of a place,
Yeah.
the confinement, if
Yeah.
it was not done during the designated hours. So,
Hmm.
and then you didn't have any kind of human contact, and
Yeah.
there was no sense of time also. Like you'd barely
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
if it is 2 p.m. or 10 p.m. Or say for that matter, uh, is it morning or so. Basically, there was this experiment that a psychologist did. He locked himself in a cave, and
Hmm.
he said that when you lose the sense of time, it is maddening, and you can lose your consciousness as well. You can lose a lot of your memories. So
Hmm.
it is to say that Savarkar endured a lot, and for that matter, Savarkar's first 4 years in cellular jail had around 2.5 years of solitary confinement.
And reading Janki Bakle's book and Hindu Rashtra Darshan, I realized what a great job actually Randeep Hooda has done with the film. Because watching just the film, when I had not read the books, I did not know what was the real achievement of Randeep Hooda. His real achievement was picking from such a gigantic collection of things to choose from that there are so many awesome things to describe about Savarkar. But he picked the coolest ones and set it in a proper coherent narrative. That was his biggest achievement, I think.
I think my only criticism would be not in terms
Hmm.
of facts, but
Right.
that he kind of underplayed the Savarkar post London. He could have
Hmm.
shown a lot of facets of Savarkar, like his involvement in, and then uh, the Bose scene was kind of patronizing to me because there are a
Hmm.
lot of layers to that. So,
Hmm.
and then it becomes all Hindu Muslim for Randeep Hooda after that. And
Hmm.
that's the problem we have in understanding Savarkar. We think that he has become this polarizing figure who has
Hmm.
ceased to be an anti colonial nationalist. That's
Hmm.
problematic.
I
Yeah.
see. What do you think was the relationship between Bose and Savarkar?
See, it has its grace. So, initially, So Bose has probably read the 1857 Indian War of Independence, because that is found in his INA, leftovers. So also, when Savarkar was released from the cellular jail, and then, sorry, from the detention in Ratnagiri, Subhash Bose congratulated him, and then in later in that year, he kind of met L.B. Bhopatkar, who was a close aide of Savarkar, and he wanted to bring Savarkar to the Congress fold, because he thought that Savarkar was a quite a potent leader, and he would have his own, and I think Bose was also kind of rallying around the extremist voices, and that was problematic to Gandhi, and that's why he kind of made it a personal matter. So Bose was pretty aligned to Savarkar till then, and then Savarkar drifted to this Hindutva politics, and
Right.
it took a more ferocious form. And it was undeniable that Savarkar had nothing to do with the Muslims on a negotiation table per se, but more it was more of a sense of showing that Hindus can kind of get the national freedom from themselves, and they can avoid the partition if they are strongly united. So Bose did not agree to that. Bose was some sort of a Gandhian secularist in that regard, in terms of the
Yeah.
social understanding.
Yes.
And so he had his own sets of problems with that. That's why Forward Bloc also had similar objectives in regard to achieving the Indian freedom, but it did not have the same idea of the nationhoods as Savarkar's Hindu Mahasabha did. So Hindu Mahasabha is known to be this party which does not represent the Muslims, and
Yeah.
Bose wanted to represent the Muslims. So that's where we see some sort of a departure. But interestingly, if you want to go deeper into this, there's a lot of contradictory facts, and I'm yet to put them into a linear perspective.
Okay.
That's why I'm saying my research is still in progress. So, but I would still say that there's some sense of amicability between Savarkar and Bose, much more than it was between Nehru and Bose.
Right. Here's a devil's advocate question.
Okay.
If Savarkar, who didn't even care about the core tenets of Hinduism, like he didn't even care about the non-negotiables of Hinduism, but still can be considered to be a Hindutva figure according to you as well. Then, for that reason, by that same yardstick, Ambedkar, who even probably definitely hated Hindu theology, but when it came to the threat to all Hindus, he kept pointing out that it was a threat to all Hindus, not just Dalits. So therefore, shouldn't he be also a Hindutva icon? Just for this reason.
See, in terms of Shatru Bodh, in terms of the external enemies of Hinduism, he's bang on. And I think he should be credited for that. But in terms of dealing with how the Hindus should look, from within, like how they should perform as a society, I think he has his views which are at loggerheads with a lot of other stakeholders within the community. So I would say that he was agnostically dealing with the threats. He was not really motivated as a Hindutva figure in that regard. I kind of don't see it that way. Yeah. What was your other part of the question?
No, that therefore is he a Hindutva icon or not? But if he was that agnostic, why would he even care about Hindu safety? Why couldn't he say that? So all law and order problems are bad. No religion should do this to anyone, and should have forgotten that Muslims are a threat to Hindus.
See, it could also come from a place of rationalism, not just a sentimentality, because Savarkar also has at places advocated for a religionless society. He says that if there seems to be a scope for a religionless society, I would still kind of appreciate the communists. I would still say that they are not hypocrites, but they behave as hypocrites because they have bought in this Muslim appeasement idea that I think is not something that a rationalist should portray. So it's kind of funny in that regard that Savarkar kind of identifies as a cultural Hindu, and yet as someone who is the inheritor of this vast Hindu civilization and its aspirations. And at the same time, he has very conflicting ideas about himself. And I think
mm,
he never made peace with that, because
mm,
he ended his life in a very Hindu way, in a very,
mm.
it had its inspirations from a lot of other Hindu icons.
Yeah.
So, but in terms of his ideas on atheism, he has been pretty clear at places that he's an atheist, but at the same time, uh, as a contradiction, he has kind of quoted a lot of instances where he remembered God in his Andaman days. And then he
Mm,
has also written a lot of poems invoking gods. And then
mm.
he also views this nation as Bharat Mata, or say the goddess of freedom, the goddess of sovereignty, the goddess that nurtures the civilization.
Hmm. Did he write works that mythologized himself, and did he declare himself to be the Veer?
See, of course, Savarkar is cannot be called a humble man, so to say. He lacked humility, but then he was
Hmm.
pretty objective in that regard. Because
Hmm.
I remember when I was researching on the London phase, all his compatriots there, they attributed their sense of uh, idea of revolutionism to Savarkar. They called him a leader, and VVS Iyer, MPT Acharya, even Virennath Chattopadhyay's biographers consider that Chattopadhyay was under deep influence of Savarkar. Savarkar was his leader. Madan Lal Dhingra, everybody knows, was molded by Savarkar into this assassinator. And then Bhai Parmanand also speaks of him as a leader in a 1938 article of the India House, and Senapati Bapat also calls him a leader of the India House.
Hmm. Hmm.
So if you say that just because Savarkar called himself a leader, that has to do with the myths around Savarkar, I would kind of disagree, because it has its roots in truth.
Hmm. What was his relationship with Bhagat Singh like?
Okay, so uh, when Savarkar was in London, when he stepped foot in London, Bhagat Singh was not born. Bhagat Singh was born in 1907. So when Bhagat Singh was started getting these revolutionary ideas, uh, Savarkar was one of the first people that he read, and we can see that from a lot of accounts of other revolutionaries who say that Bhagat Singh used Savarkar's books for recruitment purposes. He expected people
Hmm.
to read it as some sort of a prerequisite to get into the organization, and then
Hmm.
a librarian with whom Bhagat Singh corresponded a lot. He met him on a frequent basis. That librarian contends that Bhagat Singh uh, was deeply inspired by Savarkar's works,
Hmm.
especially the 1857 work and the pseudonymous biography, which cannot be really attributed to Savarkar, but he was quite impressed with how Savarkar was portrayed. That leap of Marcel's that was portrayed, that
Hmm.
impacted him, and he kind of considered it an epochal moment in the revolutionary movement of India. And then
I
after
see.
that, when his time was limited in jail, when his time was limited,
Yeah.
he chose to read one of Savarkar's works, Hindu Padshahi, and he
Whose internet is gone? Hello, am I visible? Has Apratim's internet gone? Let's see. Let's contact him. Trying to contact him, guys. Yeah, so he is trying to get it back. He has a power cut and his internet is gone. So we'll just wait for him. He's restarting his device and stuff. We'll have to wait 2-3 minutes. Dia is asking, I just joined, but did you discuss Arun Shori's new? A bit, yes. We will get to it more. Wait. Let's see what kind of a discussion is going on here. Kya debate हो रहा है यहाँ? Yeah, in the comment section there's a weird debate. हाँ, मेरा तो आ गया, उनका चला गया है. Oh, he's back.
Really sorry, bro.
Yeah. Yeah,
Technical problems.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, go on.
yeah, so I was talking about the Hindu Patchai. He read it in his prison days, and people say that he read a lot of books. So I would like to counter that by saying that in prison your time is limited, and if you still choose to read one of your former icons, then he had kind of a very deep. He was deeply inspired by Savarkar, in my opinion.
Exactly.
And also, he has written some articles where he calls Savarkar the great anarchist, and he's one of the first people to call him Veer Savarkar in 1924. And then there's one more article where he calls him this great anarchist, and then he describes in very passionate words the meeting between Madan Lal Dhingra and Savarkar and the impact that Savarkar had on Dhingra. So Savarkar was definitely one of the figures that inspired Bhagat Singh in the revolutionary movement, but we would never know to what extent did he subscribe to Savarkar's ideals or how he responded to that. There's also this conspiracy theory that they met in Ratnagiri in 1928. Yeah.
Right. Did Bose and Savarkar ever meet?
Yeah, a lot of times. Like it is said that they met in 1938 and then they met in 1940. The 1940 meeting is highlighted a lot.
Yeah, there are pictures of one of those meetings, but in personally in his home, the way it has been shown in the movie, was that real?
Yeah, that's real. That's true. They met at Savarkar's house.
Yeah. I see. And Savarkar gave him the idea of INA.
Yeah, I would like to think so. No, not in terms of kind of terming it as the INA or something, but he kind of told him to move to Germany or Japan to seek help from there and make an army and kind of attack India from outside.
And contact Raj Bihari Bose, that was also suggested by Savarkar.
That's right. But it's interesting because Raj Bihari also was communicating with Subhash Chandra Bose before that meeting. And but yes, Savarkar and Raj Bihari Bose were talking about militarizing the Hindus. So that has to do with the connection that you see between INA and the Hindu Mahasabha.
Right.
So I also posted this tweet about a Lok Sabha debate in 1997 where Dada Baburao Paranjpe, a Jabalpur MP, says that I was inspired by Savarkar to get into the British Army and then defect to the INA. It was Savarkar's idea. Yeah.
I see.
And then there's one, and he says that there were hundreds of soldiers like him who did the same on Savarkar's advice, on Savarkar's, exhortation. So Savarkar was doing whirlwind propaganda for, getting Hindus in the British Army. There's this one more instance in the National Archives where a soldier named K.N. Rao Sirai says that I got into INA because of Savarkar's advice. And there are a lot others who are with me who came on Savarkar's advice. So it is quite fascinating in that.
And so after he comes back from the Andamans, what all does he achieve? Did he start cooperating with the British as he promised in the Mercy Petition?
Not really. That's false. That's completely false. Because, see, Savarkar.
Oh shit! His internet is gone again. in this very crunch moment when he was about to say something fascinating. इस दुख से हम थोड़ा हजमोला खा लेते हैं. When a hajmola container lies in front of you, you can't resist for too long. Why did I keep this in front of me? But the point is, I'm sure he'll come back. Let's just wait and I'll check out some comments. You all are talking about Arun Shori. अभी भी सर्वेलेंस चल रहा है उन पर. As Janki Bakle pointed out, he was practically under surveillance of the British ever since he was 16 years old. And that ghost of surveillance is still haunting him. Yeah, ऋषि, गांधीयन तो जानकी बाखले भी है. तो जानकी बाखले का book and Arun Shori's book are not even from the same planet. I became a bigger fan of Savarkar because of Janki Bakhle's book. But you see, you were asking in the beginning that why am I asking the questions of torture and sodomization? To point out to people who are probably hearing about these things, or a curious liberal who's just checking out our podcast, they must know the extents of the tortures Savarkar faced. We can't just say, yeah, he was tortured and move on. We have to get into the details of exactly what was the torture, exactly how much was he suffering, because a lot of people these days believe in stuff like microaggression and societal psychological violence. We have to get into whether Savarkar was facing real violence or was he getting beaten the shit out of him. So obviously we'll have to know that whether he was sodomized or not in the jail. Anyway, yeah, go on.
Hi. So really bad day with my phone right now. So where was I?
Yeah, comes back from Andaman, and does he become a British stooge or not?
All right. So if you see how he was treated in the Andamans, or how that insistence of the British to arrest him played out, I don't think Savarkar owed any favors to the British government. So even when he was released, he was not released unconditionally. He was released conditionally. He was confined to the Ratnagiri district, and he could not move out of Ratnagiri without the permission of the district collector. And he also could not do any political activity. So I think this is one of the criticisms of Janki Bakle also. She says that he was released strategically to kind of counter the Gandhian threat. But the theory falls on its face, because I think Savarkar wrote a lot of anti-British content also in his Shraddhanand's writing. So if Savarkar had that much of an influence, then his anti-British writing should have also influenced a lot of people. So I think it is a very vague argument, and I don't know why has she made it. I hold the same opinion for Arun Shori. I don't understand why he has made those claims that he did. So also there's a lot of these claims where they say that Savarkar was promoted to he was incentivized to promote the divide and rule. But there are a lot of contradictory material. So in 1925, Savarkar wrote an article which you can find in the National Archives. It's titled "Suffering Muslims of Kohat." The title is sarcastic, by the way. So in that, he kind of goes all out against the Mohammedans, the Mohammedan community, and he was rebuked by the British government for that. And the bloke that wrote that letter to Savarkar ends the letter by saying, I beg to remain your most obedient servant. So that argument is also kind of falls on its face there. And so there's this play that Savarkar wrote. It's called Ushap in 1927, where he sort of shows some characters which are communally motivated.
Hey, his internet is gone again. वाह मोदी जी वाह, क्या इंटरनेट है. Rishi is asking an interesting question. Why didn't you create more content regarding Operation Syndhu? Because there was no content to make about Operation Syndhu. I'm not a reporter. I'm not on the war front. Every news that's being reported is fake. What was I going to cover? देखो आज यहाँ पे बम गिरा है, इतने लोग मरे हैं, हाँ और कुछ भी करना चाहिए और पाकिस्तान को मारना चाहिए फिर नहीं मारना चाहिए, यही तो बार बार बोलना पड़ेगा. I'm juggling between this and Kushal Mehra. Nice. What's he discussing? Ashkazim is saying he had gone through a lot more than Malcolm X. The left is constant talk about. I know unfair comparison, but someone has to say, yeah. Yeah, but you see, Ashkacham, he was a privileged Brahmin. Malcolm X was not a privileged white guy, so comparison nahi ho sakta hai, Ashkacham. Yeah, so Shori is Gandhian, but just because of this book doesn't mean all the work he has done before. Yeah, mean तो नहीं होगा. जो लिखना था वो तो लिख दिया है, वो तो बढ़िया book है ही. So basically, this is a sequel to his book False Gods. He just wants us to not have any gods. He's an iconoclast, I guess. Fair enough. Like someone Ashkacham was saying, Hindutwa derangement syndrome. सिर्फ उससे उनको दूर रहना है. तो इतना गांधी से प्यार है इसीलिए क्या बीजेपी उनको भा गया था, बीजेपी उनका मन को भा गया क्योंकि बीजेपी आरएसएस भी तब इतना ही गांधीयन थे, इससे सीताराम गोयल से भी बवाल होता था. Perhaps. Interview of Shori at News Laundry. Yes. Anchor was almost like a little lewd stepping on his steepling on his fingers. Yeah, mila koi bolne wala. Your opinion on Arun Shori's book on Savarkar and Ambedkar? Ambedkar's one I have not read and I don't intend to read anymore because I don't think it's that relevant because he's not really a god to me, so I don't know why I must know why he's false god, and I had no plans of reading his book on Savarkar as well before I even knew it was controversial because I was already on the way to reading so much about Savarkar. I was just finishing Hindu Rashtra Darshan, then Janki Bakle's book, then I am going to read Vikram Sampat's book, so I had no plans to read it. But now that he has written such controversial stuff, someday I will probably read it just to see. But it's being debunked by so many people like Apratim here. I don't know what's the point, but to find out that what are the things that I might stumble upon that are really critical of Savarkar and true. But people are debunking it anyway, so I probably won't read it ever. So yeah, go on, Apratim.
Which book are you talking about? Arun Shori's?
Arun Shori's book, yeah.
Okay. So it's interesting that all of these figures have not really gone through the National Archives diligently. And that's why they are able to come up with these shoddy conclusions, which have no basis, because had they come across these evidences, I don't think they would have claimed about these things in the manner that they did. It's kind of more of a frustrating ordeal for me because all of these criticisms kind of pop up now and then, which have no relevance to the the material that is in the National Archives. The National Archives material, by the way, is quite pro Savarkar. It exonerates him from all his him from all the supposed crimes that he did as a traitor to the nation.
I see. Probably for that reason, Janki Bakle steers clear of at least that criticism. She makes it absolutely crystal clear repeatedly throughout the book. Even quoting some Marathi historian called Phadke, with the surname Phadke, that the mercy petition, Maafi Veer argument just does not work on Savarkar. Her opinion basically is that she is a Gandhian herself, self-declared Gandhian. And her opinion is that, yes, there are legitimate criticisms to make of Savarkar, but make the right criticisms, not this criticism. This criticism is absolutely baseless. And even in the last conclusion chapter, she has conclusions at the end of every chapter, but even the last final chapter called conclusion, even there she ultimately says that he may have been a stooge of the British. Perhaps. She just adds the word perhaps. So all she wanted to do was, I guess, convince people that देखो मैं गांधीयन हूँ और सावरकर के बारे में अच्छी बातें लिख रही हूँ, तो गांधी को थोड़ा गाली कम दो, सावरकर को मैं अच्छी बातें भी बोल रही हूँ, तो थोड़ा बैलेंस आउट करते हैं. She just wants to offset the movement. Do you find his yeah, go on.
So Phadke also, the author that she consults for a lot of archival material on Savarkar, he's a phenomenal author. I think he has written one of the best, well-researched books on Savarkar. and he's
I
a
see.
Gandhian.
I
He's a
see.
Gandhian, and yeah.
I see.
So it's interesting that even Phadke is not making those claims that the Gandhians of today are making.
Right, exactly. And you are also not a Savarkarite, right? You actually have disagreements with Savarkar.
I am essentially a Savarkarite.
Okay.
But
What are your disagreements
I
then?
keep that away from my reading of history. And also, I keep
Fair
that,
enough.
I see Savarkar as this figure that kind of shields the inner diversity of Hinduism. I don't
Interesting.
see Savarkar as someone who wants to stop people from doing what they do. He just wants them to be a bit more, progressive, just a bit more
Hmm.
progressive to have sufficient empathy for other groups to function as well within the
Hmm.
Hindu fold.
Hmm.
That's it. I think that's a
So you
valid
don't think
criticism from him. Yeah.
Savarkar's idea or vision for the society would someday demean Hinduism or lead to the end of Hinduism? Maybe Hindu people would be safe, but does he destroy Hinduism in the long run?
See, for me, the essentials of Hindutva provides that space for the inner diversity of Hinduism to thrive. But if
Hmm.
you kind of examine Savarkar's personal views, they have that sort of agnostic touch or the atheistic touch to them. The rationalistic mind of Savarkar is at play here. And I think
Hmm.
those arguments cannot be extended to all Hindus because those were
Hmm.
subjective distillations. Those were subjective
Hmm.
conclusions. If he does not consider cow to be worthy of worship, it's his own, take on it.
Hmm.
Not everybody would kind of agree. If he thinks
Hmm.
that certain rituals are not to be performed that way or they are
Hmm.
obsolete, it's his view. For a
Yep.
lot of other Hindus, they hold a lot of meaning.
Yes.
So he has this habit of critically examining a lot of Hindu traditions, and I think those are subjective arguments. I don't have a problem with him commentating on them, but I certainly do see a problem if those views are kind of considered sacrosanct, and I don't think that Savarkar himself considered him to be sacrosanct in that regard. He had his
Yeah.
independent views.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think the amount of Western influence he had in his thoughts that's to a problematic degree?
I think he could not have, shut his eyes to the Western literature. A lot of other uh, English educated elite from Maharashtra, they referred to a lot of Western literature, even Tilak.
Hmm.
But Tilak had different conclusions. Savarkar had different conclusions on the Hindu society. So I think
Hmm.
even after reading that, if you have a sufficient anchor in the Hindu civilizational fold, you will not deflect that much. But I think, yes, Savarkar has his own sense of pragmatism and rationalism that plays in a lot of
Hmm.
his ideals.
Hmm.
But
Uh, yeah,
that
go
is
on.
also beneficial because that gives Hindutva a kind of agnostic outlook. It is not really a
Right.
religious doctrine, but it's more agnostic. It allows Hindus to function politically as a unit, even despite the components being having all sorts of different ideals, all sorts of different worldviews. He wants them to function politically as a unit. I don't think
Hmm.
he considers that the cow worship thing or the ritualistic thing to be extending across all traditions. So
Right.
those are his own disjointed views. Yeah.
Hmm. Should it be and can it be a religious doctrine, Hindutva? Because commies are all day long conflating Hindutva with a completely theological idea, which it isn't at all. But should it be and can it be?
See, religion, if it is codified in a certain way, it is some sort of a political document, in my opinion.
Hmm. Yes.
So the I don't think a lot of political writings are needed to kind of bring the Abrahamics to function politically.
Hmm.
The sense of identity, the sense of exclusion, everything is there in their books. That is why they are called the
Hmm.
people of the book.
Hmm.
So it is also a self-sufficient political document for them. Their
Yes.
books are good enough politically also. But
Yeah.
at the same time, we have to read a lot of Dharma Shastra. We have to read a lot of Nitis to function politically if we are Hindus. We don't get sufficient insight from the Vedas or the Upanishads to function politically. So we are quite diverse in that matter. Yeah.
Right. And since we are diverse, then what do we do? Then it can it be theological at all? Hindu unity.
See, Savarkar has produced some sort of a theological document, in my opinion. He has defined the enemies of the idea of Hindu nationhood. He has defined the duties of the self, that you have to function as a unit. You have to function. You don't have to bring caste into politics. It should be more of a casteless thing. Caste should be a personal matter. And if possible, then it should also be ended within 4 generations by intercaste marriage. Those are Savarkar's ideas, but I don't think he has really pressed upon the Brahmins to, throw away their Janayu or anything. He's not done that.
Yeah. Do you think Savarkar will ever be as popular and relevant across the country as Gandhi? Or as
across the country, yes. Across the country, yes. Internationally, it will take time. Because see, Gandhi has his own set of inner contradictions, and Savarkar has been also Savarkar also is seen sympathetically by a few people from the left also, because there are a lot of ideas of Savarkar that resonate with the left as well. So Savarkar has this assimilating tendency because his foot is completely in the Hindu civilizational fold, and then he has these ideas which were supposed to be the stronghold of the left. So he has shown Hindus a way out. It's a clue to navigate our way in the confused 21st century.
Right. So when he comes back to Ratnagiri, what does he do there, sitting in Ratnagiri, and what does he achieve even after Ratnagiri?
So once we understand that Savarkar was in some sort of house arrest, he was not allowed to move out of Ratnagiri, but he had Ratnagiri at his disposal, not for political activities, but he could do the social activism there, and he did precisely that. So tick number 1. Second, you expect him to write for the cause of revolutionaries if you were to contend him as a revolutionary who had not seized his outlook till then. So yes, he has spoken for a lot of revolutionaries. Tick number 2. Third, in terms of commentating on politics, he has done that as well. He has criticized Gandhi. He has celebrated the 1928 resolution for Purna Swaraj and everything, that kind of thing was going on in Indian politics, where Nehru and Bose wanted complete independence, and Gandhi was asking for time to study the argument behind asking for complete independence. So that is also there. So he is a political commentator also, and he has criticized Lala Lajpat Rai's assassination. He has also criticized how the government was dealing with Bhagat Singh, and how irreverent Gandhi was with Jatin Das, Bhagat Singh, and all other people who are locked up in jail. And so put a black flag at his house when Bhagat Singh was hanged. So that's a testament to his revolutionary commitment, and it cost him 6 more years of detention. Like he was detained for from 1931 to 1937 as well, and there were 4 rejections between that period. Yeah.
Right. And so after the unconditional pardon, what does he achieve after that? What did he really do for the country or Hindus?
Okay, so I'd like to include the assassinations also as well. I forgot them. Like in Ratnagiri, he also exhorted this 19-year-old kid from Ferguson College to assassinate the collector of the home member who was functioning in Sholapur. He was Ernest Hodgson. So Gokte writes, Gokte is kind of, he explains what Savarkar's views were for revolutionism in 1931. And he says that Savarkar the way he's explaining what Savarkar told him, I think the Savarkar of 1906 and 1931 were the same people in terms of the revolutionary outlook. And
Right.
then there's this Sweetland case, which was done by Savarkar's neighbor, and who was also a roommate of Savarkar's secretary Damle. And he was a Savarkarite. Vaman Rao Chavan was his name, and he
Okay.
shot 3 bullets at a policeman called Sweetland at Dhobi Talao. And
Okay.
when the police came to search Savarkar's house for incriminating evidence, they found a lot of terrorist outages, the clippings of these revolutionary activities, which were happening all over the country, which Savarkar had put as in a store. So the British government thought that they made a big mistake by releasing Savarkar
Right.
from Andamans.
Andaman. Yeah.
So, and after he gets released, he has seen a lot of political development that he could not affect before that. And a lot of that had to deal with the Muslim separatism question.
Okay.
So, he had to function as a voice of the Hindus, and he did that by joining the Hindu Mahasabha. Initially, he had joined the Democratic Swarajya Party because
Okay.
he was insistent more on curbing the Muslim appeasement than on seeking a body of totally Hindu outlook. And
I
so
see.
Congress was definitely into Muslim appeasement. So he did
Yeah.
not consider it right to be a part of Congress, but initially he was a part of Democratic Swarajya Party, but it did not have enough institutional footprint. There were not a lot of followers of that party. So he eventually left it and joined the Hindu Mahasabha. But as soon
I
as he
see.
was released, he started invoking the names of the revolutionaries that had inspired him and that had inspired the country. And he also started talking about Shivaji, Maharana Pratap, Rani Lakshmi Bai, Tatya Tope, and Madan Lal Dhingra, Anant Lakshman Kanhere. So all sorts of social, speeches were given by Savarkar after his release. So you can understand what his views were on the British threat or on the Muslim question. Or when he joined the Hindu Mahasabha in 1938, he exhorted the Hindus to unite militarily and consolidate their strength in the Indian army. And he also gave out all those numbers that B.R. Ambedkar has pointed out in his book, Pakistan or the Partition of India, where so there's this interesting anecdote where Savarkar tells the Times of India that Ambedkar consulted him before writing the book.
I see.
So, and we see a lot of parallels between their thought there.
Right.
So
a guy who was
yeah,
organizing assassinations for British, he can't be a British stooge at all.
absolutely. So see, there's no reason Savarkar owes no favor to the British government, and all the accusations that have been made in regard of his cooperation with the British government after his release from Ratnagiri's detention, those have been manipulated and shown in a way that decontextualizes what Savarkar was trying to achieve.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this fact I had no idea about, what you mentioned, that he did not even join Hindu Mahasabha as his first preference. He was kind of cornered into picking a side finally based on his religion. He did not want to do it. This is very, very significant.
That's an interesting fact. And in 1937, there was a congregation of congressmen, communists, and a lot other political leaders that wanted to congratulate Savarkar on his release. M.N. Roy was present there and a few congressmen. So M.N. Roy made a passionate speech, celebrating the release of Savarkar. And then Savarkar proceeded to take the dais, and he said that if the communists were preaching for a religion-less society, I would have supported them completely. But they are hypocritical when they, pander to the Muslims. And I would not join the Congress for the same reason, and it has been dipped too much into this non-violent thing, which I don't subscribe to. Otherwise, I would have happily joined either of these or supported
Right.
them. So
Yeah.
I think to Savarkar, religion is more of a personal preference, and that's where it gets problematic because he extends some of his agnostic views to the national discourse as well. So that could be a critique of Savarkar, that he he kind of pushed his subjective conclusions to down to throats of the orthodox or the traditionalists or people like that. So
Right.
uh, and then I'd like to continue with the Hindu militarization movement. In 1938, uh, Savarkar tried to tell the Indians to increase the Hindus to increase their numbers in the army because he saw this rising Muslim constituents in the army as a threat, and he wanted Hindus to uh, exceed the Muslims in terms of their numbers in the army. And then he also gave veiled hints at the purpose of the army. And the purpose of the army would be to find that appropriate moment where the British
Yeah.
government would be focused on a different ordeal, where they would not have that kind of strength. And the Hindus would have to seek that avenue and kind of, throw away the British government.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
made that veiled reference a lot of times. Uh,
Hmm.
and I think by 1942, it was no hidden secret, and Hindus joined in large numbers in the British Army, and a lot of them defected to the INA. Even Bose, at multiple instances in his speeches in Azad Hind Fauj, says that I'm getting a lot of favorable response from the soldiers in the British Indian Army. I think we'll get a lot of help from there. This is the most nationalistic Indian Army ever. Then
I see.
he also says in one of his thesis, I think it's called the Kabul thesis, he says that we should recruit people from the British Indian Army and we should train them with vis-a-vis our objectives. So
I see.
uh, I think he has said that twice, uh,
I
and I
see.
think that a lot of correspondence has been done between Bose and the Indian political leaders, and that included the Hindu Mahasabha. Because
Hmm.
when Bose reached Afghanistan, the news of his escape and where it was confirmed where Bose is, the first news came to Sarat Chandra Bose and to the leaders of Hindu Mahasabha. It has been highlighted by Marzia Kasolari in her book, In
I
Shadow of
see.
the Swastika or something like that. Yeah.
I see. So interesting. Many fascinating things.
Yeah.
There's a Bengali scholar, Dr. Malay Patla, who's writing a Bengali book on Savarkar's relationship
Yeah,
to
I am
Bengal.
aware of that.
So he came on our
Yes, yes,
podcast as
yes.
well to discuss the book, and he said
Oh,
that
nice.
uh, M.N. Roy, even though he was a staunch communist by then already, and he did not have ideological agreements with Savarkar anymore when Savarkar returns from prison, he still went to meet Savarkar in fully Indian clothes. And Savarkar's wife got surprised that why is M.N. Roy all of a sudden dressing up as as an
Yeah.
Indian, and he says just to impress, just because I have my respects for Mr. Savarkar even now, for that reason.
Yeah, that's from the book The Indian Royana. So
I see.
uh, even his fellow communist comrades laughed at M.N. Roy's gesture to
I see.
Savarkar. They speculated that Savarkar would have even M.N. Roy would have even touched Savarkar's feet,
Hmm.
as
Yeah.
even though it is a Hindu expression.
Yeah. And you are kind of going through the lists of his achievements post Ratnagiri. So go on with that list.
Yeah, so through Hindu militarization, he
Hmm.
wanted to create a stronger claim on the negotiation table with the British government. And he
Yeah.
also wanted to deter this threat of Pakistan or civil war
Hmm.
if ever
Yeah.
this issue of Pakistan props up on our faces. So,
Yeah.
uh, Jinnah and Liaquat Ali Khan, and also a lot of other Muslim leaders in their private correspondence, have talked about this threat of Savarkar to their idea of Pakistan. They say that
Oh,
Savarkar is enlisting Hindus at a rapid rate, and I think it is very imperative upon us to start militarizing the Muslims as well, because now the numbers are no more the same as they were before the World War. Savarkar has
I see.
succeeded in his objective, and it will be very difficult for us to leave Hindustan and form a separate nation with such a dominating number of Hindus in the army. So
I
that
see.
was a difficult challenge that Savarkar posed on Jinnah and Liaquat Ali, and they minced no words when they said that this Hindu militarization is not to pander the Britishers at all. It is
Hmm.
not to cater to their demands. It has
Yeah.
different objectives. The
Yeah.
Britishers will be deceived by Savarkar in a major way very soon
Hmm.
if they keep on letting
I
him do
see.
his things.
I
Yeah.
see. So that's the thought kind of shown in the movie as well. Randipuda says that वक्त आने पर हम बताएंगे बंदूक की नली किस ओर घुमानी है. That was the recurring theme.
भाई मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ, मैं ये सारे क्लेम्स को हिपोक्रिटिकल मानता था इसके पहले तक.
Hmm.
I used to consider them just a whim of a few people who wanted to connect the dots and project some
Okay,
sort of this messianic image of Savarkar. I was very
I
critical
see.
uh, on the point that Savarkar inspired Bose, or Savarkar was raising this army which under the nose of the British, and wanted them to rebel also. I could not
Hmm.
understand how he could have managed all of that when the
Hmm.
Britishers were so, sensitive to all sorts of sedition.
Hmm.
So it's
Right.
very interesting that Savarkar actually accomplished a lot of his objectives.
Yeah.
And with the
Now,
success
yeah, go
of the
on.
INA, I'm sure Savarkar now has a very relevant place in our freedom struggle
Hmm.
because
Now,
the INA was so
yeah, yeah,
successful.
sorry. Go on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
I'm done.
how much was Vikram Sampat's book relevant for your research?
A lot. See, Dhananjay Keer has propagated some falsehoods. A lot of his research material is non-existent in the archives. A lot of his conjectures are not backed by thorough primary material. But then you can say safely that 95 or 99% of the things that Dhananjay Keer is saying in the book are correct. But then
Okay.
uh, there's difficulty for researchers to navigate using Dhananjay Keer's book. But Vikram
Hmm.
Sampat has done this great task of, you know, venturing into the National Archives, the NMML, the India Office records to
Hmm.
research the MSA, the Maharashtra State Archives, and even a
Okay.
lot of material in the Savarkar Smarak, Rashtriya
Hmm.
Savarkar Smarak.
Yeah.
So I think Vikram ji has done a great job in putting out these primary source materials, which were, which came after a lot of propaganda material on Savarkar. A lot of these
Yes.
propaganda books were released before Vikram ji wrote that book on Savarkar, and
Yeah.
there were no good rebuttals to those propaganda, pamphlets by
Hmm.
A.G. Nurani or Shamsul Islam. So
Hmm.
if somebody reads Vikram ji's book, he would already vindicate Savarkar at great
Hmm.
lengths. But I want to put a microscope on his revolutionary activities because those seem very
I see.
mischievous on Savarkar's part. Yeah.
I see.
And there's a lot that
Yes.
has to be told.
And this is something interesting you mentioned in the Indicated podcast as well, that Savarkar had a way of doing things that could not be tied back to him, even though people would just make the connection, but it could not be proven in the
Yeah.
end. So that begs the question that then did he really instruct Godse to murder Gandhi?
See, there's a lot of contradictory material
Okay,
with respect to that. So
I see.
there was this meeting that the India House members, the colleagues of Savarkar, had with Gokhale, and Gokhale dismissed all the reasonable demands of these India House fellows, and he had a very rude outlook on these revolutionaries. And uh, the
Yeah.
India House, these revolutionaries of India House, they completely lost their mind. They were like, what the hell is this guy doing even as a leader of the Indians? He's least concerned about our aspirations, about our quest for Indian freedom. He just wants this, this British rule to be perpetuated. Why don't we just kill him?
Right. Yeah.
Why don't we just kill him? So Savarkar says that at the end of the day, he's one of our own. You don't you don't kill one of your own. You may differ in terms of your methods, but you have to understand who is your enemy. Your enemy is the other side, not your own side. So
Okay.
there may be differences, but you cannot keep on going on a killing spree, killing all those people who disagree with you. So even Tilak, for that matter, would have disagreed with the extent of the revolutionary movement, maybe. Or Aurobindo denounced the political assassinations, but then why don't we just assassinate Aurobindo because he denounced the political assassinations? We don't do that. We don't do that kind of a discussion here. They are moderates, that's okay, and they are quite lackadaisical in their approach, but that does not make them our enemy. Our true enemy is the British, and later on, when Savarkar realizes that it is the Pakistan demanding Muslims as well.
Is it possible that he lost his patience with Gandhi then, even though he was patient up until the point of Gokhale?
See, that's kind of subjective, because I think Savarkar made peace with the fact that uh, the that India was partitioned, because you see that symbolic Tiranga at his house on August 15, 1947. That tells that Savarkar has kind of made peace with that fact. He just wants to not let further Pakistans form within India. So his objective is pretty different after India's independence. And then, see, I'll tell you some contradictory evidence with regard to the shoddy case that has been, foisted on Savarkar, that was none of Savarkar's business actually. So there's this guy called Digambar Badge. So he turns out as the informer for the government to implicate Savarkar in the assassination. He says that Savarkar made statements like "Yashashvi Hoon Ya" to Apte and Godse, while Apte and Godse were claiming that they had not even met Savarkar. So later on, Digambar Badge, in an interview to Manohar Malgonkar for a book, The Man Who Killed Gandhi, says that I was lured into giving that sort of a deposition in court. I was given a bungalow. I was given a guaranteed source of income as well. I was so Digambar Badge is also involved in that initial assassination attempt on Gandhi on 20th January. So they assure him that we'll release you scot free. You won't have to deal with all this court kachahari. So Digambar Badge thinks that everything is a win-win here. So after weighing all his options, he thinks that there are no choices here. He has to save himself.
I see.
And then he's also getting a lot of benefits. So he transcended all the respect he had for Savarkar as this great icon of Maharashtra, and he gave a speech against him. He gave a deposition against him, and he regretted that in his interview to Manohar Malgonkar. And then a lot of the strength given to this theory is based on the diary records of Jamshed Nagarwala. This police official, he recorded the statements of Appa Kasar, the bodyguard of Savarkar, and his secretary Gajanan Vishnu Damle. And those claim that yes, Savarkar met Godse and Apte and all sorts of things, but these two people were never produced in court. Although then it was beneficial to the Nehru government to nip Savarkar in the bud completely, because he was rising as this threat who claimed that Pakistan happened and I told you, but you did not listen to my words.
Yes.
And all that. So Hindu attraction. So Nehru could have used that to his advantage, and that's why Badge was a collaborator with the government. Those two statements were never produced in court. Those remained in the diary of Nagarwala forever, because those two people were hostile evidences. I don't think Savarkar's followers would ever divulge his name, even if Savarkar was involved. Even
I
if
see.
Savarkar was involved, I'm just saying nobody has done that before.
Hmm. Right.
So
If he, yeah,
uh,
yeah, gone.
other, yeah. So uh, the other functionaries of the India House, the people that brought the guns and everything, those were not very devoted Savarkarites. Those were forced into bringing the gun, and they could not keep their mouth shut. But they were not really part of the core organization. So
Okay.
that's where Savarkar made that sort of a mistake. Although Koregaonkar is one such informant that was pretty close to the Savarkarite faction, but
I see.
I think there are a lot of grays there. So
Okay.
the conclusion remains that Apte and Godse were saying that we ourselves had become quite bitter about Savarkar and his objectives nearing the partition of the country, and we thought that Savarkar could have, you know, held a strong foot. He could have, showed a strong face to the Pakistan demanding, stakeholders. And he did not
Hmm.
even criticize the Congress that much. He just wanted to do some hartals, some random hartals. And we criticize Savarkar in our articles, and that's true. Agrani has a lot of anti-Savarkar articles nearing the, India's freedom. And then now these hostile evidences, while the court case and everything was going on, the Red Fort trials were going on, they were held back in prison. They were not released, even though they were not, showed in presented in court. So
Hmm.
when Savarkar was released, these two were still in prison, his
Hmm.
bodyguard and his secretary, and they were
Yeah.
released after 6 months of that, because they could have
Yeah.
affected the case by saying that we were coerced into giving statement. So they were hostile evidences.
Okay.
And now there's this meeting in 1964 when Gopal Godse is released, where one bloke claims that I knew of their plans beforehand, and that's why the Kapoor Commission was formed, because they wanted to know what was going behind the scenes, because they thought that the court conclusion was incomplete. And in that also, they did not bring Damle or Kasar to verify the claims presented in the diary, which is very interesting, because if you don't bring them and you consider those as some sort of valid evidences, then you are kind of losing out on a major, you know, first-hand account,
Yeah.
without which, if you appropriate the murder of Gandhi on Savarkar, that will, uh, you know, uh, will be an incomplete assessment. And that's what they have
Yes.
done. They have,
Yeah.
labeled that Savarkarites brought the death of Gandhi, and that's true. Savarkarites did that, but it was not
Hmm.
Savarkar. And I think that it was
Hmm.
not sufficiently proven, and that is why when this case was reopened in the Supreme Court,
Hmm.
they denied after some preliminary research that I don't, we don't think that this warrants another, court proceeding on it.
Hmm.
Savarkar was uh, uh, released with full, uh, uh, with full respect. So he does not.
Hmm.
We don't see his involvement in the Gandhi assassination.
Hmm. It was kind of an
So
attempt
I
by
think these are all.
the what Indian governments always do. They wanted to make it a that process is the punishment sort of a deal with Savarkar. They probably knew that Savarkar would never go to jail for that, but let's just humiliate him and harass him for years and decades.
Yeah, and they used it as their fulcrum
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
political campaignings that they did in the
Yeah.
1952 elections.
Yeah.
It benefited them. The
Um,
narrative that Savarkar had his hand in Gandhi's assassination benefited them a lot.
yeah. If he had in fact
Yeah.
become the prime minister someday, do you think he would have become a fascist, not a theological Hindu fascist and stuff, but a secular fascist only?
Uh, See, I would like to know, what do you mean by the word fascism in that regard?
Authoritarian, no freedom of speech and stuff. Everyone has to be conscripted, and you just do what's set out for you, whatever government tells you to do. This is the profession you have to get into. You have to get to the army. You uh, deviate from the path of the government plan a little, you get killed. That kind of stuff.
Okay. So, when we started this podcast, you were accusing Savarkar of having some liberal views
Yeah.
on Hinduism and the sense of self. I think
Yeah.
in his 1944 constitution produced And also in all his presidential speeches, he's guaranteeing democratic rights, one man, one vote, and all that. The freedom for individual expression. He also grants Muslims the freedom to practice their religion freely. I don't think that's a concession from Savarkar that you would be able to digest that easily. But Savarkar is
Yeah.
a man with contradictions. He
Yes.
wants Muslims to not bring up this demand of Pakistan, and he'll be fine with the Muslims.
Yeah. Their loyalty has to
But
be to India,
he
not to Saudi Arabia.
understands exactly. So he wants them to locate themselves and be satiated within this
Right.
civilizational framework. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if they have some sort of this extraterrestrial, fantasy, or they want their
Mhm.
nationhood to be transnational, that will be problematic because they're
Yeah.
anyways doctrinally opposed to what the Hindus are.
Yeah. Yeah. The Hindu Mahasabha draft constitution was as liberal as it could get. It had protections for all sorts of minorities. What I'm wondering is,
So,
just as a devil's advocate, I don't believe he would have, but just as a devil's
mhm.
advocate, could he have kicked out that constitution after he becomes the prime minister, or after he has remained the prime minister for 5 years, and then decides, no, let's do fascism?
See, Savarkar's actions prior to India's partition or independence are contrary. He is bitter about the Muslims, but then he's the same person who talks about this sense of Hindu-Muslim unity that can be brought in 1941, 1942, and all. He
Yeah.
also has this sense of optimism. And
Yes. Ambedkar was
remember
further
that.
right wing of Savarkar in this context.
Absolutely. So Savarkar is not as radical as he seems. He is a product of his
Hmm.
times. He understands the Pakistan issue to be, contrarian to the civilizational interests. So he
Right.
has reasons for that hatred. But apart from
Hmm.
that, he was ultimately fighting for the freedom of the Indian people. I don't think he would have
Hmm.
curbed that freedom.
Hmm. And
And then he was pretty progressive also. He loved the theater, he loved music, he loved the literary
yes. Yes.
expressions. He also understood the significance of irony and sarcasm and those veiled remarks on political figures in theaters and everything. So I don't think
Yeah.
there's question of freedom of expression with Savarkar. He's more liberal than we think, and that's why there's a lot
Yeah.
of description of his views even in the Indian left.
Yeah. And now let me tell you why I was going on with the fascism accusation. It's because at
Yeah.
one point in the book, Janki Bakle points out that Savarkar and that other Marathi experts on Savarkar have also pointed out that Savarkar was sort of a heavy fan of big fan and sort of fanboy of Darwin and Nietzsche, both of whom are accused of being the inspirations for Nazism and stuff. And I showed that section to a scholar, a very able scholar in sociology, sitting abroad, because I'm a personal fan
Hmm.
of Nietzsche as well, personally. So I
Right.
showed him excitedly
Same.
that,
Same.
see, Savarkar was also a
Yeah.
Nietzsche fan. He said, dude, that's being written as a criticism. That's being a connection between fascism, Nazism, and him is being drawn through Nietzsche. Do you think that was the case? That he would become a Nazi because he read Nietzsche as well?
See, Nietzsche, Darwin, and Savarkar, all of them are concerned about the theory of power. That's why you think that these are the parallels that would have led to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
But only brain dead people will, you know, consider power to be some sort of a genocidal tool.
Right.
Savarkar was not brain dead. He was bitter about
Yeah.
Muslims, but he was not genocidal. And in
Yes.
1939, when he talks about the Jews of Germany, he
Hmm.
says that Germany is known to mind his own business and they are free to do what they have to. He
Hmm.
did not know about the genocidal stuff that was going on. He was more
Hmm.
concerned with the strategic, implications of what he says in the speech. He wants
Hmm.
Germany, Italy, or say Japan to side with the Indians in ousting out the British government
Yeah.
from India.
Yeah. Hmm.
So his whole impulse was strategic in making that statement. It was more
Hmm.
to do with uh, the statement that enemies of our enemies are our friends.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Where do you then locate his comments about using rape as also a tool of warfare? Because one side is going to go and do it. We are sort of bringing a knife to a gunfight if we don't do that, I guess. What do you think of that comment? And what were the exact comments regarding rape?
Uh, I would see it in a different light. I would say that he considers two warring sides to not base themselves on the question of morality. That's it. That's what he wants to say. He's disgusted by the moral high ground that the Hindus take in their defeat.
Hmm.
He does not like how they said that we had to save the cows so that we did not shoot the outsider. He's disgusted by all sorts of theories like that. So it is
Hmm.
not said as an advocation, but more of a disgust for the moral high ground that the Hindus tend to take when they are defeated. He wants them
Yes.
to uh, respond to the outsider in their own language, and that was
Yes.
just an allusion to that. But it's not to do with the advocation of rape. If you would have decontextualized Savarkar and quoted him, in front of him and said that, oh, you are an advocate of rape, I am sure he would have denied. He would have said,
Hmm.
I am not that kind of a person. He
Hmm.
also denied the fact that he wanted Hindus and Muslims to live separately
Hmm.
because they were two nations. He said that my remarks have been taken out of context. I just
Okay.
mean that they are antagonistic, but there are solutions to that, and I'm
Hmm.
working on that. And that's
Yeah.
what Gandhi was also doing. He also understood that these two these two communities are warring against each other unnecessarily. They are getting into all sorts of fights, and this will not lead to a very amicable conclusion. So he was working on the Hindu Muslim unity. He did not understand these to be in relation amicably. So I think Savarkar is being quoted out of context, and that's why a devil is being made out of him. It's not a big deal.
Hmm. Hmm.
Savarkar made those
Yeah.
statements as a logical proposition, but he had some noble ideas. He's not that sort of a demon that we make of him.
Hmm. And we repeatedly see so much of Nija in Savarkar, and Nija
Yeah,
himself
yeah.
was very much a critic of Christian morality and a fan of Hindu morality. So it was all coming back in a circle. So Savarkar was kind of getting second-hand Hinduism, ancient Hinduism from Nija only.
Yeah, so I would like to quote Savarkar and tell me if you see some of Nietzsche in that.
Hmm.
I had even written a draft on it. I was going to
Okay.
include Savarkar's parallels with Nietzsche, and then I had not read Janki Bakhle's book. So I did not know
Okay.
that Savarkar was inspired by Nietzsche
I
in
see.
some manner. So
Yeah.
I was giving a hypothesis that there's some sort of a relation between Nietzsche and Savarkar
Yeah, that's
in
the
my
feeling
book.
I also got from reading Hindu Rashtra Darshan before reading Bakle. And so when I found out from Bakle's works that he was in fact a declared fan of Nietzsche, I was very thrilled.
So even Savarkar's ideas of good and evil, they resemble Nietzsche. He does not
Absolutely.
consider, good and evil in terms of strength. There's,
Hmm.
only a weak person would give excuses.
Hmm.
The strong person would do things, and he would
Yes.
not whine about. So that's
Yeah.
Savarkar's entire idea. He's more focused on accumulating power for the Hindu community.
Yes.
So there's this writing that I uh, uh, on Nietzsche's thoughts on camel, lion, and child. He considers that there are three metamorphoses towards the Ubermensch. So Savarkar
Hmm.
also has his parallels there. Uh, he the For Savarkar, the camel is the colonized. So do you want me to explain what the camel, lion, and child mean
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the readers?
Got it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just read out because I don't want to
Yes.
become
Yeah.
a theorist myself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
For Nietzsche, a camel is no
Hmm.
ordinary man. So it's not an animal. The camel is not an animal. Here is just a figure, a symbol of Nietzsche's ideas.
Yeah.
So a camel can
Yeah.
endure extraordinary pain and burden. It is a creature of
Hmm.
obedience, part of the daily struggle of the world. yet it bears all of it, the pain, the struggle, and the insurmountable burden. While an ordinary man might buckle under stress, the camel can take it all. And it is because of the fact that camel can take all of that pain that camel is worthy of coming out of it. So the camel transitions into a lion when it has surpassed the hardened camel stage. Now, the lion was once a camel who bore all the weight of the world and managed to stand upright. But now that it knows how to endure such stress, it is worthy of rejecting it, refusing to take more. It says no to the excesses and stagnant ways of the world, to the unproductivity that holds it back. I think you can understand that Savarkarite idea is also kind of related to this unproductivity that he's frustrated by. It roars against the existing system, which Nietzsche likens to a tyrannical dragon. The lion fights the mighty dragon head on, even if the odds of winning are abysmally low. The strongest lions will ultimately tame the dragon, yet taming the dragon is not the ultimate goal. The lion itself is a byproduct of the existing system, the root cause of miseries. The transition from lion to child, a symbol of new and better ideals, is the only way out. Now, the child is not completely an Ubermensch, but he's striving towards that, and in the process, he's giving some fresh ideas to the human existence. So, to me, the camel is the colonized. He is taking all sorts of burden, and he has the seeping anger, and he wants to revolt, but he does not have the means for it. And he has taken all sorts of burden, and some of these people become assassinators also, like the Chapekar brothers or Vasudev Balwant Phadke. So now the lion is the revolutionary. The lion wants to say no to the existing system. But once the objective is done, they can freely become constitutionalists. So the child is the constitutionalist, the progenitor of the fresh ideals. So I thought that this is somewhat, this holds a stark resemblance to Nietzsche's ideas. And so I also quoted Savarkar from My Transportation from Life, where he says, see the flexibility between, the transition between the lion and the child and all that. So Savarkar believes that you can be a constitutionalist when the British government is more, obedient towards you, or more, considerate towards your demands. But if they refuse your demands, then you have to become a revolutionary. So it was not this, monochromatic thing with Savarkar that he just wanted to be this, hardwired revolutionary. He was also acceptable of the constitutionalist demands and the constitutionalist movement. Even Narayan Savarkar, who was publishing all of Savarkar's writings in Shraddhanand, he took part in the civil disobedience movement too in 1930s. Even when Savarkar was, pouring all his vitriol on Gandhi in the 1920s in his writings in Shraddhanand. So Savarkar did not stop anybody from entering the constitutionalist movement. He also wanted to enter the constitutionalist movement. And that is why he gave all sorts of democratic ideals to the Hindu Mahasabha. So Savarkar writes in My Transportation from Life in page number 351, we revolutionaries ought always to remember one thing and guide ourselves by one principle, that politics worth the name is neither cooperation nor non-cooperation. It is responsive cooperation, and morally it can be no other. If we win a step by cooperation, then let us cooperate with the opposition. If we feel certain that cooperation is useless, then let us resort to non-cooperation. Sometimes non-cooperation has to be non-violent. At other times, it cannot help being violent. And even violence or resort to terrorism ought to be only a temporary measure. And by the way, this is the same doctrine that HSRA of Bhagat Singh holds. It says that we can resort to terrorism, but it has to be a temporary measure. Non-cooperation cannot be a principle. It is only a remedy for the time being. Cooperation with all and in the best interests of all is a positive doctrine. And when it works for all and promotes the good of all and is acted upon according to time and circumstance, it is rightly described as responsive cooperation.
Philosopher Conor McGregor once said that always aim for peace. If you can't have peace, then aim between the eyes. This is what it reminds me of.
Absolutely.
Do you see?
So,
go on.
I also wanted to make one more point, that Savarkar
Yeah, yeah.
is said to be an advocate of violence,
Hmm.
but I would like to reframe it. He was an advocate of responsive ahimsa. He said
Yes,
that
exactly.
if there's no reason for violence, then don't do violence. But if the
Right. Of
aggressor
course.
comes at your doorstep, you have to fight back. That's it.
Yeah, because you're preventing violence by doing that violence. Prevention of violence is the goal.
Exactly. So it is just. The self-defense is
Yes.
just. It is
Yeah.
dharmic also.
Do you see parallels between
Yeah.
Lord Krishna's thoughts and Nietzsche and Savarkar?
Absolutely. Completely. Completely. Morality as uh, the primacy of ends more than the means. That is
Hmm.
the strategic morality of Krishna, Savarkar, and
Yes.
I don't know how Nietzsche describes that, but I think in terms of the power equation and everything,
Hmm.
morality as a will to power, I think Nietzsche would have agreed with both of
Exactly.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Explain to me then that how did this insane version of ahimsa get propagated, so popularized, even though all Hindus back then were not atheist commies like today? All of them had read Gita. All of them knew Gita almost inside out. How did they get persuaded then?
It was due to the promotion of Gandhi by the British government by acceding to his demands, the non-violent demands. So Gandhi has written various letters to these viceroys that please agree to my demands and you will be uh, done. You'll not have to deal with these revolutionaries or the anarchists. He
Yeah.
has written that in his
Yeah.
letter,
Yeah.
and that's what has happened actually. And so Bipin Chandrapal's exit from the Congress was due to this very reason.
Hmm.
He said, you are leading some sort of papal autocracy. Like you have made this whim about non-violence, which is
Hmm.
totally, beyond me. Why you do it? The country cannot be ruled by magic, but by logic. So he left the Congress on this very question.
Right. So
So,
Hindus who were reading the Gita every day, how did they get
hmm,
convinced? Just because of the promotion and the propping up of Gandhi?
see, nobody wants war. A lot of people, nobody wants wars, to, prop up now and then. They don't want
Yeah.
people to keep fighting. So if the
Yeah.
war comes, then there are different reactions. Some people still want peace without fighting, which is absurd.
Hmm.
And then some
Hmm.
people are, of course, votaries of going out on an all-out war.
Hmm.
Or some people
Hmm.
want it to be just responsive enough to
Hmm.
defend ourselves. So
Hmm.
Gandhi hijacked the freedom movement by his own reinterpretation of the Gita and his denunciation of the revolutionaries and the denunciation of the civilizational icons, these people like Maharana Pratap, Guru Gobind Singh, and Shivaji, by saying that they were misguided, though they were good at heart, but they were
Hmm.
misguided.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is not the right way to do things. So
Hmm.
the masses also wanted to be included in some sort of way in the freedom movement, and for Gandhi, the masses did not have to do much or sacrifice much to participate in the freedom movement. They just had to
Hmm.
rally around the cause in the ways that they could. So
Hmm.
wearing khadi was now going to give India its freedom, or
Hmm.
weaving the charkha.
Hmm.
So people had this sense of feeling that this belonging into this mass movement uh,
Yeah.
that uh, could bring India its freedom. So Gandhi kind of made that sort of an atmosphere where people thought that they were actively contributing in the cause, while in Savarkar's worldview, they would have been alienated because Savarkar wanted to keep the masses safe and the revolutionaries as separate to the aspiration of the national freedom. He did not want
Hmm.
unnecessary bloodshed. He just wanted a
Hmm.
loyal army of soldiers who could do the job.
Yeah.
But so
Uh,
R.C. Majumdar is also frustrated with the simplistic notion of non-violence that is considered to have brought India its freedom. He says that no freedom can be, negotiated without revolutionary activities.
hmm.
Nowhere has it happened that there has been a peaceful exchange of power.
Hmm.
There has been violence, which
Yeah.
has kind of transformed the way the power equation was.
Yes. But then because of the popularity of Gandhi, a majority of Hindus just changed the theological understanding of ahimsa and started teaching their kids the wrong thing because of Gandhi's popularity.
Yeah. So the best retort to Gandhi has been given by Aurobindo. He says this is totally adharmic to not fight back when you are at the face of you are in front of an adversary. So he says that if you don't respond in that manner, the adversary, the antagonist will consume you. So if you are trying to resist him through sheer soul force, you are creating violence on self. So that is pretty interesting. So Aurobindo turns out as this the greatest critique of Gandhi after Gandhi, had held his front in the political scene. And Savarkar also has given very befitting replies to Gandhi. And by the way, Aurobindo also said this, that if, for example, this invasion of Afghanistan happens in the Indian subcontinent, in India, on the northwest frontiers, what would Gandhi do? Would he repel them by his sheer soul force? No, he would not be able to do that. And if he thinks that the British government will leave by change of heart, I don't see it happening anywhere before 200 years.
And that was kind of his criticism of Buddhism as well. He says that imaginarily he addresses Buddha himself and says that you came up with a great idea, but it's just not applicable for the matter of fact world. I guess we are not good enough for your idea.
What are you talking about?
Buddha.
You're talking about Aurobindo?
Savarkar. No, Savarkar.
No, you're talking... Okay,
Savarkar's
of
criticism
course.
of Buddhism. Yes. So,
so
Buddhism is great. We are not great enough for Buddhism.
Yeah. So Savarkar has written this interesting play. It is in Hindi in the Savarkar Samagra. It's called Sangeet Sanyas Khadag. And I think it's his best contribution for the revolutionary ideology. And also his best contribution that could have happened from the confines of Ratnagiri. He comes out as this votary of the revolutionary movement, like none other. So so that play is sort of put forward to defend Bhagat Singh against Gandhi's misguided propaganda against the revolutionaries. So that's a response to that. So Gandhi is represented by Buddha and Bhagat Singh is represented by a character named Vikram Singh, and it has come in the same time when Bhagat Singh was the death sentence on Bhagat Singh was announced in 1930. Yes.
Yeah. Now, last, just 2-3 questions, small questions, kind of associated with, attached to each other. What is the legacy of Hindu Mahasabha? How big were the contributions of Hindu Mahasabha? How relevant were they in the end?
See, it could not have made contributions in terms of changing the dynamics in the country, the political dynamics, because they were even, say, numerically 1/10 of the strength of the Muslim League, leave alone the Congress. They were not even considered at the negotiation table in 1945 when all these talks on the way forward were by the British government. They did not consider the Hindu Mahasabha to be significant. But although the Hindu Mahasabha had the best chance to the Wavell plan, and that was appreciated by Subhash Chandra Bose as well through the Azad Hind Fauj. So that's kind of a round circle for Subhash Chandra Bose in terms of his appreciation for Savarkar and then denouncing him in between.
Yeah. Was Hindu Mahasabha just
in terms of,
go on.
In terms of their prophecies, all of the prophecies of Hindu Mahasabha stand true. In terms of their views on the constitution, a lot of their ideas are in the constitution, except for the reservation thing. Everything is there pretty much. And
exactly.
And also the militarization movement, I think, has contributed a great deal to make India less prone to this external threat of Pakistan. The Hindus had been only 30% in the army, God knows what would have happened.
Yeah, and that is what Ambedkar warned against.
Exactly.
Uh,
So I think they were pretty effective in that regard. They completely, shifted that power balance. Like before the
yeah.
war, there were 70% Muslims, 30% Hindus. After the war, there
Hmm.
were 70% Hindus, 30% Muslims, thanks to
Yeah.
Savarkar.
And even in the
Yeah.
Kashmiri Maharaja's army, Ambedkar was proven right. His prophecy came true. The betrayal overnight of all the Gurkha soldiers by the Muslim soldiers. Uh,
Exactly. And even in the INA, if you see, a lot of these Muslim leaders of the in the INA, they
hmm.
migrated to Pakistan immediately after it was
Yeah.
formed.
Yeah.
So Habibur Rahman is said to be an example. There's this excellent article by Sarvesh Tiwari ji. I think he's called Bharat
Okay.
Hindu or something in a blog where he talks about, he labels them as the jihadis of the INA.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so there were a lot of problems in including Muslims in the militarization program. Savarkar realized that. Bose did not,
Hmm.
probably.
Hmm. Yeah. He was very hardcore secular. Now, was Hindu Mahasabha just a Savarkar cult?
Uh, you can say that in a way that Savarkar ideals moved the Hindu Sabha forward even after his disappearance from the political scene. All of the Hindu Mahasabha leaders after that had nobody to look up to except Savarkar for the theology and the driving program of the Hindu Mahasabha. But there was also a significant section of more moderate Hindu Mahasabhites led by Shyama Prasad Mukherjee.
Yeah.
So there are different shades to Hindu Mahasabha, but at the same time, the major ideals are all the same.
Hmm. Do you think Savarkar must share the blame somehow for Hindu Mahasabha's failure, that he did not, uh, let's say, design the party in that way that it could survive without him, or he was just too much of a megalomaniac to do it? So does he share blame?
See, we have to understand that the Hindu Mahasabha was quite fringe in its ideology because it advocated for a casteless society, which a lot of
Hmm.
Orthodox Hindus did not subscribe to, not even the
Exactly.
SC/STs. So
Hmm.
it did not have that kind of a binding force or that resonating
Yeah.
power that Gandhi had on the masses. So there was not much subscription for Hindu Mahasabha's ideals as well. And then they were
Hmm.
talking about all this aggressive stuff. And G.V. Ketkar, in his theory, contends that Hindus were not essentially that aggressive. And
Hmm.
especially after what Gandhi did to the philosophy of the Hindus.
Yeah.
So it would not have really affected a lot of, say, uh, dynamic changes in the political sphere because of its numerical strength as a party, but it sure has its ideological contributions. And the militarization movement is one of the tangible contributions of the Hindu Mahasabha,
Yeah. That's so
apart
true.
from how it looks at the society, at the Hindu
Hmm.
society politically. So
Hmm.
right now, Hindu Mahasabha has, it has started gaining footprint in Indian politics through its ideas, not
Yeah.
through, not many people credit them for it.
Right. Uh, the way India is today now, do you think we are better off this way, or would it have been better if Hindu Mahasabha had been less idealist and stayed in the game and then changed the game? Or is it really better this way, that their ideas still percolate, at least they are pure ideas from a pure group of idealists?
See, it has to do with the numerical strength of the Hindu Mahasabha. Had they that kind of a strength as the Congress did, they could have prevented the partition, and a lot of these debates wouldn't have been happening in the first place.
Hmm.
Uh, what was your question? Please repeat. I just missed it.
Yeah.
What
That
did you say?
are we in a
Yeah.
better situation now that where Hindu Mahasabha doesn't exist, but their ideas are still pure and we remember them and they still trickle down in our psyche? Or would we have been better off in a situation where Hindu Mahasabha did exist but had toned down their rhetoric and were not as idealistic, and then still stayed in the game and fought? Would they have been better then, or
So
would India have been better off
the
that way?
failure, the Mahasabha was not strong first hand, and after that it was
Yeah.
completely crushed by the Nehru government. Otherwise, we could have seen their ascendance in the Indian political scene. So it has to do. It has a lot to do with what kind of power did the Hindu Mahasabha hold. So these are questions of what ifs, but I guess
Yeah. Yeah.
the Hindu Mahasabha would have been far more modern in outlook.
Right.
So all this trad raita debate would have happened in 1947
Yeah.
itself.
Exactly. 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 What key thing do you think Congress got right and Hindu Mahasabha got wrong, for which the majority of Hindus supported Congress and not Hindu Mahasabha?
See, people subscribe to a convenient reality, and it culminated into the formation of Pakistan. So,
Yeah.
although Hindu Mahasabha was right in its prophecies, and that's where I test the character of a national party, uh, and the Congress was pretty much off the mark, because it created this sense of delusion that all things were going good and we won't have a partition. Gandhi said the partition will happen over my dead body, but whenever the time came for taking that decision, Gandhi buckled. So I would
Yeah.
say that they did not live up to their promises, while the Hindu Mahasabha could not effect their promises, but
Right.
they were totally spot on in terms of their intentions.
Okay. Last question for today, Apratim. First of all, let me apologize to you once again for forgetting your name in the beginning moments, because I keep confusing your name with a friend of mine who's called Supratim, and because Apratim is a very, very Bengali, common Bengali name. So, and the surname is not Bengali, so
Okay.
I got all confused. So, are you
So
Bihari
in
or
Marathi
Marathi?
parlance also,
You're
no,
Marathi.
no, I'm from UP. No, I'm from UP, but
Okay.
Apratim is a regular word in Marathi literature. So
Oh, I see.
it means exceptional. It means
Yeah.
that someone who is exceptional, someone
Yes.
who is does not has his own originality.
Right.
Yeah,
So first of all, I apologize, and thanks a lot for coming to this podcast, and thanks also for writing
no
the book.
problem, no
The,
problem, man.
the last question is that why are you writing a book on Savarkar? Why again a book?
Okay, so I would like to ask you a counter question.
Hmm.
Had you not read, uh, say, Janki Bakle or Vikram Sampat, or let's say you even read Vikram Sampatji's work, would you
Hmm.
resolutely be able to say that Savarkar was always a revolutionary? Would you be able to say that? Like,
I
would
don't think
you
so.
see a discontinuity in his revolutionary ideals after he got jailed? Like,
Yes,
do you
yes, I
think
would.
that they ceased to exist?
Yeah,
Even after reading Sampatji's work?
I have not finished Sampatji's work. I've read Hindu Rashtra
Okay.
Darshan and Janki Bakle's work.
So, see, even I am a product of Sampatji's work in some manner. I'm not saying that
Hmm.
after that I did not read other works or did not have a nuanced understanding on Savarkar, just the understanding that Sampat sir gave me. But there
Hmm.
are hints at Savarkar's even after Andamans in that book, and but it got lost in a lot of this Hindu Muslim thing, the Hindu Mahasabha politics and all. And I
Hmm.
realized that there was a lot of things that were to be explored, because there was this incomplete Bose Savarkar angle that he kind of could not
Okay.
really make out the meaning of. So he had
Okay.
to, leave it as a question for further, research. So
I
I kind
see.
of took that bait in, and
Okay.
I realized that there's a lot of the revolutionary Savarkar that has to be highlighted, because that is the mischievous part of Savarkar that is completely functioning under the British nose. He's being
Hmm.
held under surveillance and he's doing all sorts of things, which are anti-British, and the British government can't do much about it,
Hmm.
because first of all, a lot of these things are done pseudonymously, and then whenever an assassination is happening, it is not traced back to Savarkar completely, though the British
Yeah.
government has their apprehensions, but they don't get anything even after searching Savarkar's house, because these people who tried those assassinations, refused to budge. And even none of those assassinations fructified. So there could not have been that extended case on the assassinators, like it happened when the case on Madan Lal Dhingra and Anand Lakshman Kanhere's assassinations happened.
But why Savarkar? Who is he to you? Why not on some other guy? Why even become a researcher all of a sudden?
Okay, so I was not supposed to write a book. Even back in 2010, 23, I was not supposed to write a book on Savarkar. I was researching independently on Savarkar. I liked that idea of researching on the man because something or the other, exceptional stuff was, resurfacing because of my forays into the National Archives. And, with all those discussions on Twitter, I have a lot of friends in a group on Twitter on Veer Savarkar. They are also exemplary in their own right. I would like to recollect a blog which is very good. It's called Rediscovering Savarkar. It's by a girl named Aparna. And then there are a few other friends. There's this interesting account by Itihas Abhyuthan. Then there's Jinesh Jan and a lot other names. I know I would miss a lot of them. So I'm not going into that right now. So we used to have very healthy discussion. I was writing, I was trying these preliminary drafts on Savarkar with one of my friends whose account is called Feluda Mitter. Back then, he was given a shout out by Vikram Sampat on the Charvak podcast also. So we were trying to write a book on India House, solely on India House, in even in say 2021, 2022. We tried that, but we could not go very far with that because we had our own share of commitments, and then that guy got admitted into BITS Pilani. So he had his own share of academic load. So we left that project, and when I started this book, I again contacted him, but he was really not able to find time for it. So he said that he can have those discussions like always, but he does not have the time to write or research anymore. So that's sad because we kind of miss his contributions now, his long Twitter threads and everything, debunking everything through primary evidence. And so after that, I got into translating a book which is a very prominent Hindi bestseller. I don't know if I should name it right now, although I think I have mentioned it in a blog. So okay, let's reveal it. It's called Hey Ram. It's on Amazon. It's on Gandhi and Godse's book, which says that there was actually a crisis of the refugee crisis. There was a lot of Muslim appeasement that was going on that led to the environment that created resentment against Gandhi and Gandhi's popularity.
You did the translation of that book, right?
Yes, the English translation. It is under publication right now. It is under publication. It is yet to release. Yes. So after that, I realized that now I know the craft of doing the work because I was trained in the craft, at least through that translation. And Prakharji's book had a lot to guide me on that. So I kind of got that format working for me. And eventually I shifted to start writing for Savarkar, and I had the scope very clear in mind that I want to explore the revolutionary Savarkar because that's what interests me more than the noise about this communalist Savarkar, so to say, or this social Savarkar of Ratnagiri. I wanted to move the discourse in a certain direction because exploring the revolutionary Savarkar kind of absolves Savarkar of all the vitriol that has been poured on him, and that kind of strikes every sort of allegation in the linearly in the same way.
Yes, very nice, very awesome, very very cool, Apratim, because now I know exactly why you are writing the book, and now I realize why your book is going to be very important as well. I was not clear up until now. I thought, okay, he's writing a book on Savarkar, and the more the research on Savarkar, great, because we have about 10 million books on Gandhi. Who cares? So 10 million books on Savarkar bhi hona chahiye. It's good, but now I realize that you have a very, very specific problem that you are solving. That's very fascinating. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you, bro.
Okay, then we hope to have you back soon, discussing that era of Indian politics back again, and hope to see your book book in on Amazon very soon. Thank you for coming, Apratim.
Sure. Thanks for inviting me, bhai. Thank you.
Yeah. Good night, Apratim. Good night, guys. See you soon.
Good night.
যদি সবাই ফিরে যায় ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা সবাই ফিরে যায় যদি গহন পথে যাওয়ার কালে কেউ ফিরে না যায় তবে পথের কাটা তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে যদি আলো না ধরে ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা আলো না ধরে যদি ঝড় বাদলে আধার রাতে দুয়ার দেয় ঘরে তবে বজ্রা নলে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো